Today we're taking a bit of a summary of tournament results in 9th edition and seeing which factions are doing best. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy focused 40k channel where we're all about getting the most out of our miniatures on the tabletop. So 9th edition has been out for a couple of months now, and despite all the shutdowns and lockdowns, there have been some tournaments happening, though naturally quite a lot of them tend to be quite a lot smaller affairs. In this video I thought we'd try and summarise which 40k armies tend to be doing best in events these days. There might be a bit of a clue as to the armies that are put on this slide. So there's quite a lot of ways that you could look at tournament data and try and interpret exactly which armies are doing best. For the purposes of this video I've gone down quite a simplistic approach for a method that I thought would give us a rough temperature check of the meta with big enough numbers to compare most factions. Basically I've had a look through each of the tournament results on the Best Coast Pairings app, and for each tournament, large or small, that's greater than 10 players in size, I included any lists that were in the top 10%. So for example, if there was a 10 player tournament, that would just be the winning list, but say if it was a 25 player tournament, then it would include the top 2 lists in that event. I know that including a lot of small events will include a bit more randomness in this, as there's a lot more chance that someone could just fluke away to a win with 3 games against people in their local meta, but I still think that it might give us a bit more of an indication as to what people are playing, even in these smaller events. A lot of armies included allies. For any allied armies I just used the biggest faction points wise, and from a quick look over the app it gave me 191 entries. You can see the results down in the list below. On the Imperium side it's really not too surprising that Space Marines take the crown, with 41 top 10% placings since 9th edition began, which means that roughly 1/5 of armies that were finishing in the top 10% were Space Marines. I know that is quite a lot, but I'm not convinced it's quite as oppressive as a lot of people on the internet seem to have been getting worked up about. Lots and lots of people play Space Marines, so it's not really too surprising that when they're quite good, they'll do well in any sort of ranking list. On the Imperial side, Space Marines are followed by Adeptus Custodes and Space Wolves, both fairly hardy and durable melee armies that are pretty solid at bullying their way to the centre of the table. Then we have Adeptus Mechanicus with the powerful new options that Engine War gave us, and the list is completed by Blood Angels, Astra Militarum, Imperial Knights, Sisters of Battle, Grey Knights, Dark Angels and Deathwatch. I was honestly a little surprised not to see more wins for Sisters of Battle and Grey Knights, both armies that I consider quite strong. Dark Angels also have surprisingly few entries on the list. I know their unique options aren't necessarily the strongest at the moment, but I would have suspected more entries for them, just because they have access to so many of the powerful tricks that Space Marines like to use. Moving on to Chaos, Death Guard and Chaos Demons are the clear winners here. Death Guard I really wasn't surprised about, they're incredibly tough and rewarded by 9th missions, but Chaos Demons do seem to be doing a lot better than I'd anticipated. I guess with many of their annoying objective secured troops units such as Nurglings and some others, plus many big hitters in their exalted Greater Demons, they're not too bad at holding objectives while dealing damage to the enemy. For Chaos lists in particular, a lot of them tended to be allied, a lot of them would have Death Guard with Chaos Demon allies or the other way round, as there's a fair bit of overlap with the synergies for Nurgle, and I think the Demons profit from adding a bit of shooting, whereas the Death Guard profit from adding things like Nurglings. Unfortunately it's a fairly meagre showing for the Chaos Marines proper, and definitely a little bit underwhelming for Thousand Sons. The points changes and changes to their smite I suspect haven't helped them much. Moving on to Xenos, and the Xenos armies tend to be dominated by 2 factions. First up, Harlequins by a long way, and currently seem to be the second strongest faction in 40k after Space Marines. I was initially a little bit sceptical about Harlequin's success in early 9th, but between all of their excellent tricks and stratagems from their Psychic Awakening update in the White Dwarf, and the way that the new 9th edition missions work, they're a real terror to behold on the table. I think it's particularly impressive that Harlequins have quite so many high placings, as unlike the legions of Space Marine players, Harlequins have really quite a small following, so the fact that this many players are getting this many good results really is a testament to how strong the army is. Next on the list for Xenos, I did expect Orcs to be doing fairly well, but the number of placings is still a little bit better than I expected. Orc lists tend to be a bit more of a hybrid affair these days, some combination of large mobs of boys to steal objectives, fast-moving buggies such as Megatrack Scrapjets and Shock Drum Dragsters, and the good old reliable Smasher Gun spam has secured quite a lot of decent placings for the Greenskins. Unfortunately for the rest of the Xenos armies, they're really not faring all that well. Tyranids haven't really been strong for quite a while, Tau have really been hampered by the new missions, Necrons didn't really have any sort of Psychic Awakening updates, and I think that this shows that they're very weak indeed, as I'm sure quite a lot of people are playing them with all the new releases. Drukari Craft Worlds really don't seem to be getting all that many top finishes either, though I did see them used as a slightly more minor half of the army in many Harlequin lists. Here's a breakdown of the various Space Marine factions within that big 41. Unsurprisingly for core Codex Space Marine chapters, Salamanders are by far the top. They just have a ton of powerful stratagems and great synergy with Flamer and Melter weapons that's been really helped by those Eradicators. I made an entire video as to why Salamanders are doing quite so well right now, so feel free to check that out if you're interested. It's going to be interesting to see whether people count Space Wolves, Blood Angels, Dark Angels and Deathwatch as their own codexes going forward. They are going to be rolled into the new Codex Space Marines. And if you did count them as part of Codex Space Marines, then technically it would be Space Wolves and Blood Angels next on this list. For the actual traditional core Codex Space Marine book though, the next rivals for Salamanders are White Scars and Iron Hands, the White Scars being very good at pushing up the board early, having good synergy with assault weapons, and being able to get slower moving melee troops into combat just that little bit easier. And Iron Hands continue to have great synergy with vehicles, and also being able to pull off that Phyros and Chief Apothecary Castle, where you can have a whole bunch of durable infantry with a 5+ invul and a 5+ feel no pain. The others all score quite a bit lower numbers wise, Ultramarines, Imperial Fists, Raven Guard and Black Templars in that order. There's no denying that there does seem to be a decent Imperial skew going on in the top results of tournaments, though I'm not honestly convinced it's far worse than we've seen through the second half of 8th edition. It does seem though that there's a few more viable Imperial factions compared with Chaos and Xenos ones. So in terms of some sort of final ranking based on these results alone, Space Marines very much reign supreme, and following them we have Harlequins, then Custodes, Space Wolves, Adeptus Mechanicus, Orcs, Death Guard and Chaos Demons. I would bear in mind though that after the top 4, the other results were really quite close, having 10 or 11 points each. So let me know what you think of this very rough look at what armies are doing best in tournaments in 40k. Are the results roughly what you were expecting, or are there any surprises in there for you? Hopefully in the near future I'll be doing a bit of a breakdown of Harlequins as to why they're so strong in 9th, so feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics or just check back later if you'd like to see that. Finally, if you have been enjoying the videos on this channel, I'd just like to mention that I do have a Patreon page, which is how I can afford to spend quite so much time making these videos. If you are enjoying regularly, then any support is massively appreciated. Channel patrons get to see videos early each week, there's regular votes to see what sort of things come next on the channel, and you also get automatically entered into the Auspex Tactics prize giveaway each month with the chance to win some big model kits. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support the channel, then the link is down in the video description below. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.